I started typing this story 6 months after everything ended, sitting in my small kitchen with a beer getting warm beside me. My name's Ethan. I'm 34 years old, and I fix pipes for a living. Not the most glamorous job, but it's honest work that pays well enough for me to own this 2-bedroom place on the outskirts of the city. I'm telling you this story not because I want sympathy, but because maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe someone's sitting at a fancy dinner table right now, feeling that familiar knot in their stomach, wondering if they're the joke everyone's in on except them. I met Lily at a hardware store, of all places. I was picking up some PVC fittings for a job, and she was there looking completely lost in the plumbing aisle, holding her phone up to compare a picture with the wall of brass valves. Her heels clicked on the concrete floor as she shifted her weight, clearly out of her element. She wore this navy blazer that probably cost more than I made in a week. But there was something about the way she bit her lip in concentration that made her seem approachable. "Need help?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. I'd learned long ago that women in expensive clothes usually didn't want to talk to guys in work boots and flannel. She turned, and I noticed her eyes first. Green, like sea glass, with these little gold flecks that caught the fluorescent lights. God, yes, my kitchen faucet is dripping and my super is useless. I watched a YouTube video that said I just need to replace this thing. She showed me her phone screen. "Cartridge," I said, looking at the video paused on her screen. "But that's for a different brand than what you're looking at. What kind of faucet do you have?" We spent the next 20 minutes going through her photos, me explaining the difference between compression and cartridge faucets while she nodded along, asking questions that showed she was actually listening. When I finally found the right part for her, she looked at me like I'd just solved world hunger. "You're a lifesaver," she said, then hesitated. "I don't suppose. Would you want to grab coffee as a thank you, I mean? I'll probably need help installing this thing too. But I promise I'm not just using you for your plumbing expertise." That's how it started. Coffee turned into her actually attempting the repair herself while I guided her through it in her spotless kitchen. The place was all marble countertops and stainless steel appliances, the kind of setup I'd installed in plenty of homes but never imagined living in. She cursed creatively when water sprayed in her face, ruining her silk blouse, but she laughed it off and kept trying until she got it right. "I did it," she exclaimed, turning the faucet on and off repeatedly like a kid with a new toy. "Oh my God, I actually fixed something." Her joy was infectious. When she hugged me in celebration, she smelled like expensive perfume mixed with WD-40, and I couldn't help but laugh. "Congratulations," I said. "You're now qualified to fix exactly one type of faucet." "Don't sell me short," she grinned. "I'm adding amateur plumber to my LinkedIn." We ordered Chinese food and ate it sitting on her living room floor, even though she had a dining table that could seat 8. She told me about her job at Glenway Capital, how she managed portfolios for high-net-worth clients, how she'd worked 80-hour weeks to get where she was. I told her about starting my apprenticeship at 18, working my way up to having my own van and steady clients. "I admire that," she said, and she sounded like she meant it. Building something with your hands, solving real problems. Sometimes I feel like all I do is move numbers around on screens. That night, when she kissed me at her door, I thought maybe the universe was finally cutting me a break. Here was this beautiful, successful woman who seemed to actually see me, not just a pair of hands that could fix her sink. For the first few months, everything felt easy. We fell into a rhythm. Dinner at my place on Wednesdays where I'd cook and she'd bring wine. Weekends exploring the city or hiking nearby trails. She didn't care that my truck had rust spots or that my idea of fancy was the steakhouse by the highway. Or at least, she said she didn't care. The first time I met her friends should have been a warning. It was at a wine bar in the financial district, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. The kind of place where they described the wine's undertones and finish like it was poetry. Her 3 closest friends were already there when we arrived: Hannah, who worked in mergers and acquisitions; Derek, a junior partner at some law firm; and Priya, who did something with hedge funds that I never quite understood. "So you're Ethan," Hannah said, looking me up and down like I was a piece of furniture she was considering buying. Lily's told us so much about you. The way she said it made me wonder exactly what Lily had told them. I shook hands, sat down, and immediately felt like I was wearing a sign that said, "Doesn't belong here." They launched into a conversation about someone's promotion, using acronyms I didn't recognize, laughing at inside jokes from their MBA program. Ethan fixes things, Lily said during a lull, squeezing my hand under the table. He's teaching me all about home repair. I actually fixed my own faucet last month. How? Domestic, Priya said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Derek poured wine for everyone, explaining something about tannins and soil conditions in France. When he got to me, I just nodded and said thanks, figuring it was safer than admitting I couldn't taste the difference between this and the $12 bottle I bought at the grocery store. So, Ethan, Derek said, settling back in his chair. What's your 5-year plan? Lily says you have your own business. I work for myself, yeah, I said. Steady clients, good reputation, hoping to maybe hire another guy soon, expand a bit. But no plans to scale up franchise. You could probably pivot to property management, get out of the manual labor side, he suggested, like he was doing me a favor. I like the manual labor side, I said simply. Hannah laughed, a tinkling sound that seemed practiced. Well, someone has to do it, right? We can't all push papers. The conversation moved on, but I caught the looks they exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching, the way they'd slow down when using financial terms, like they were talking to a child. The way Hannah kept bringing up stories from their business school days, creating a circle I couldn't enter. Lily must have sensed my discomfort because she cut the evening short, claiming we had early plans the next day. In the cab back to her place, she was quiet. Your friends don't like me, I said finally. That's not true, she said quickly. Too quickly. They're not used to. They need time to get to know you. Not used to what blue-collar guys? She sighed, leaning against me. They're snobs sometimes. I'm sorry. But I like you. And that's what matters. Right. I wanted to believe her. So I did. The pattern repeated every time we hung out with her crowd. Dinner parties where I'd sit quietly while they debated investment strategies. Gallery openings where I'd nod along to conversations about artistic movements I'd never heard of. Charity galas where Lily would introduce me and people's eyes would glaze over when I said, plumber. But she was different when we were alone. She'd curl up against me on my old couch, stealing bites of my burger while insisting she wasn't hungry. She'd get excited about small things, finding a perfect avocado at the farmer's market, spotting a family of raccoons in the park, successfully assembling IKEA furniture without leftover pieces. She'd kiss me in the morning before her shower, her hair a mess and her face bare, and tell me I made her happy. I started trying harder to fit into her world. I bought a blazer from the clearance rack at Macy's. I downloaded a wine app to learn the terminology. I read the financial news so I could follow their conversations. I even tried watching some YouTube videos about modern art, though I still couldn't understand why a canvas painted solid blue was worth millions. You don't have to change for me, Lily said one night, finding me reading an article about cryptocurrency on my phone. I'm not changing, I lied. Just expanding my horizons. She kissed me then, and I thought maybe I could make this work. Maybe love was supposed to be about growth, about becoming better. I ignored the voice in my head that wondered why better always seemed to mean more like them. The jokes from her friends got more pointed over time. Hannah especially seemed to enjoy making little digs. Must be nice, Lily, having someone who can actually fix things around the house. The rest of us just have to call the help, she said at one dinner, emphasizing the last word while looking directly at me. Another time, when I mentioned taking Lily camping. How rustic I suppose someone like you must be comfortable roughing it. Lily's going to need so much bug spray. Derek would offer backhanded career advice. You know, Ethan, there are programs now where you can get certifications online, move into management, never too late to aim higher. And Priya, with her fake concern. It must be so hard, the physical demands of your job. What will you do when your body can't handle it anymore? Do you have a retirement plan? Each time, Lily would give them a look, sometimes change the subject, but never actually defend me, never say, "Hey, stop talking to my boyfriend like he's beneath you." I'd bring it up later, and she'd sigh and say they didn't mean anything by it. That's just how they talked. I was being too sensitive. Maybe I should stop coming to these things, I suggested after a particularly painful dinner where Hannah had spent 20 minutes explaining why people who didn't go to college were statistically more likely to believe conspiracy theories. "Don't be silly," Lily said. But I noticed she didn't argue very hard. "I want you there." "Do you, though?" I asked. "Because sometimes it feels like you're embarrassed by me." "I'm not embarrassed," she insisted. But she couldn't quite meet my eyes. I wish you'd try harder to engage with them. You barely talk at these dinners. Hard to get a word in when they're busy discussing their stock portfolios and European vacations. You could contribute more. Share your stories." "What stories?" "The time I fixed a backed-up sewer line, the exciting world of pipe soldering." "They don't care about my life, Lily." She got quiet then, and we didn't talk about it again. But something had shifted. I started noticing things I'd overlooked before. How she'd describe me to new people as in trades rather than saying I was a plumber. How she'd suggest I keep a change of clothes at her place so I could freshen up before we went anywhere. How she never wanted to hang out with my friends, claiming she was too tired or had work to do. My buddy Jake called me on it one night when we were watching the game at his place. "She's ashamed of you, man," he said bluntly. Jake had never been one to sugarcoat things. "She's not ashamed. We're just from different worlds." "Yeah. And in her world, you're the help." He took a pull from his beer. "When's the last time she came to one of our barbecues? When's the last time she even met your mom?" I didn't have a good answer for that. "Look," Jake continued, "I'm not saying she's a bad person, but if someone really loves you, they don't make you feel like you need to be someone else. They don't let their friends treat you like a charity case." I wanted to argue, but the words stuck in my throat, because deep down, I knew he was right. I'd been so caught up in how beautiful and successful Lily was, so grateful that someone like her would choose someone like me, that I'd ignored all the ways she made me feel small. But I loved her. Or at least, I thought I did. It's hard to tell the difference between love and the idea of love when you're in the middle of it. When someone makes you feel special one minute and inadequate the next, your brain does gymnastics to make sense of it. You tell yourself that relationships take work, that no one's perfect, that maybe you really are too sensitive. So I stayed. I kept showing up to those dinners, kept pretending the jokes didn't sting, kept trying to be the version of myself that might finally be good enough. I learned about wine regions and memorized financial terms and practiced talking about current events in the mirror so I'd have something to contribute. It was exhausting, being someone else all the time. But I told myself it was worth it for the moments when Lily would look at me with those sea glass eyes and tell me she loved me. Even if she only said it when we were alone. Even if she hesitated just a fraction of a second before saying it back. The invitation to Hannah's birthday dinner came with a promise from Lily that it would be different this time. "It's a small group," she assured me. "Just the inner circle. And Hannah specifically asked if you were coming." That should have been my first red flag. Hannah had never specifically asked for my presence at anything. "I don't know, Lil. Last time was months ago. Everyone's gotten to know you better now. It'll be fun, I promise. Besides, I already RSVP'd for both of us." So I agreed, because that's what I did. I agreed and adapted and made myself smaller to fit into the spaces she allowed me to occupy. The night of the dinner, I put on my good blazer, the one I'd splurged on after the clearance rack one got wine spilled on it at another gathering. I trimmed my beard, used the cologne Lily had bought me, even Googled the restaurant to check the menu so I wouldn't embarrass myself, ordering. "You look handsome," Lily said when I picked her up. She was wearing a black dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Her hair twisted up in some complicated style that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. You sure I look okay? This place seems pretty fancy. You look perfect, she said. But her eyes lingered on my shoes. Work boots I'd tried to polish up because my only dress shoes had split at the sole last week. The restaurant was the kind of place where the lighting was so dim you could barely read the menu, and the portions were so small you needed a microscope to find them. We were the last to arrive, and the table was already full of Lily's usual crowd, plus a few faces I didn't recognize. There's the birthday girl, Lily sang out, handing Hannah an expensively wrapped gift. Lily and Ethan. How nice. Hannah's smile was the kind that involved only her mouth, not her eyes. Come, sit. We were just talking about Derek's promotion. Of course they were. We took our seats, me at the far end, naturally, with Lily between me and the rest of the group. The conversation flowed around me like water around a rock. All promotions and bonuses and vacation plans to places I'd need a dictionary to pronounce. I focused on the menu, trying not to visibly react to the prices. $48 for what appeared to be 3 scallops. $35 for a salad. The wine list didn't even have prices, which I'd learned meant you couldn't afford it if you had to ask. The ribeye's good here, the man next to me said. I think his name was Marcus or Martin. Though not as good as the one at Cut. Have you been? No, I said simply. Oh, you must. Though I suppose. He glanced at my outfit. It's quite the splurge. Special occasions only. You know, I ordered the chicken, the cheapest entree that wasn't pasta, and nursed my single glass of wine while the table went through 3 bottles. Lily touched my knee under the table occasionally, her way of checking in without actually having to include me in conversation. The dinner progressed with the usual flow. Stories about deals closed, complaints about incompetent subordinates, humble brags about investment returns. I contributed when I could. A comment about the construction boom downtown when they discussed real estate. A question about how inflation affected their portfolios that I'd rehearsed in my head 3 times before asking. That's actually a very basic question, Priya said with a laugh that tinkled like breaking glass. But I suppose not everyone has a financial background. Let me explain it simply. She proceeded to explain it like I was 5 years old, using hand gestures and everything. I saw Lily's jaw tighten, but she just took another sip of wine. As the plates were cleared and dessert menus distributed, Hannah stood up, raising her glass. The table quieted, turning toward her with anticipatory smiles. I wanted to thank you all for coming tonight, she began, her voice carrying that practiced quality of someone who enjoyed being the center of attention. 32 years old. When we were in B school, that seemed ancient, didn't it? Polite laughter rippled around the table. But here we are, all of us building our careers, our futures, and I've learned so much this year, especially about relationships. Her eyes found Lily, and something in her expression made my stomach drop. Which brings me to thanking my dear friend Lily for the most important lesson of all. Lily shifted beside me, her hand finding mine under the table. You see? Hannah continued, her smile growing wider. Watching Lily's experiment this year has taught me the value of staying in your lane. Dating down might be an interesting anthropological study. But as a life choice? She laughed, that same tinkling sound that had grated on me since the first time I heard it. Well, let's just say some of us are meant for the corner office, and some of us are meant to fix the toilets in it. The words hit me like a physical blow. The table had gone silent, everyone suddenly very interested in their wine glasses or the dessert menus. I felt Lily's hand tighten on mine, heard her sharp intake of breath. Hannah, someone said weakly. Derek? Maybe. Come on. But Hannah wasn't done. The wine had loosened her tongue, or maybe she'd been planning this all along. I'm serious. It's been fascinating, hasn't it? Watching our Lily try to pretty woman this whole situation. But unlike the movie, we all know how this ends in real life. Richard Gere doesn't actually end up with the hooker. I'm not a hooker. I'm a plumber. The words came out calmer than I felt. I carefully folded my napkin, placed it on the table. But you're right about one thing. This does end now. I stood up, reached for my wallet. The movement felt like it was happening in slow motion, everyone at the table frozen in their seats. I pulled out enough cash to cover my meal and Lily's, plus a generous tip for the server who didn't deserve to deal with this mess. "Happy birthday, Hannah," I said, meeting her eyes. She had the grace to look slightly ashamed, but the smirk still played at the corners of her mouth. "Thank you for the lesson. It's been educational." I looked down at Lily, who was staring at her plate like it held the secrets of the universe. Her face had gone pale except for 2 spots of color high on her cheeks. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. "Take care, Lily," I said softly, and then I walked out. The night air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp after the warmth of the restaurant. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my truck, and I had to try twice to get the key in the ignition. I sat there for a moment, engine running, waiting to see if she'd follow. If she'd come running out, full of apologies and explanations. 5 minutes passed, then 10. My phone started buzzing, text after text lighting up the screen. I didn't read them. I put the truck in drive and headed home. The drive was a blur. I kept replaying the moment in my head, the way everyone had gone silent, the way Lily had said nothing. Not a single word in my defense. Not even a, "That's enough," or "Stop it," or "How dare you?" Just silence. Dating down. An experiment. Anthropological study. Is that what I'd been this whole time? Some kind of social experiment to prove she was open-minded. A story she could tell at dinner parties about that time she dated a plumber. I thought about all the times I'd felt out of place. All the jokes I'd pretended didn't hurt. All the ways I'd tried to make myself fit into her world. I thought about how she'd never tried to fit into mine. How she'd never come to Jake's barbecues, or met my poker buddies, or visited my mom's place for Sunday dinner. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Lily's picture flashed on the screen, one I'd taken of her laughing at something, carefree and beautiful. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. I turned the phone off. Inside my house, my small, comfortable house that I'd worked my ass off to buy. I poured myself a beer and sat at my kitchen table. The silence was deafening after the noise of the restaurant. No classical music, no discussion of market volatility, no tinkling laughter. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator I'd fixed myself last month. I looked around my kitchen, at the cabinets I'd installed, the tile I'd laid, the faucet that didn't drip because I knew how to fix things. This was my world. It wasn't fancy or impressive by her standards, but it was real. It was mine. And I'd built it with my own hands, not by moving numbers around on a screen or talking about synergy and market penetration. For the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt angry. Not the hot, violent kind of anger that makes you do stupid things. The cold, clarifying kind that shows you exactly how blind you've been. I'd spent so much time trying to be good enough for Lily and her friends that I'd forgotten I was already good enough. I had a skill that people needed. I solved real problems. When someone's pipe burst at 2 a.m., they didn't call a hedge fund manager. They called me, and I showed up, and I fixed it, and I charged a fair price for honest work. But more than that, I was a good man. I treated people with respect, regardless of what they did for a living. I didn't make anyone feel small for not knowing about plumbing the way Hannah had made me feel small for not knowing about wine. I didn't treat relationships like experiments or anthropological studies. The beer was getting warm. I dumped it out and went to bed, leaving my phone off. Tomorrow would bring the flood of messages, the attempts at explanation, maybe even a visit. But tonight, I just wanted to sleep in my own bed, in my own house, as myself. Not the upgraded version I'd been trying to become, just Ethan the plumber, who fixed things and deserved better than being someone's walk on the wild side. I woke up to pounding on my door. The clock read 7:23 a.m., and the pounding had that frantic quality that meant someone had been at it for a while. I knew who it was before I even got out of bed. "Ethan, please, I know you're in there. Your truck's outside." I pulled on yesterday's jeans and a t-shirt, ran a hand through my hair, and went to the door. Not because I wanted to talk to her, but because Mrs. Patterson next door didn't deserve to have her Saturday morning ruined by the drama. Lily looked like she'd slept about as well as I had, which is to say, not at all. Her makeup was smudged, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing the college sweatshirt she'd had on the first time she'd stayed over. The one that made her look soft and young, and nothing like the polished professional who'd sat silent while her friend dissected our relationship for entertainment. "You turned off your phone," she said accusingly. "Yeah. I've been texting and calling all night." "I know. Can I come in?" I stepped aside, letting her pass. She knew her way to the kitchen, had made coffee in it enough times to move without thinking. But she stopped in the doorway, uncertain now, like she'd lost her privileges to casual intimacy. "Coffee?" I asked, because my mother raised me to be polite even when my heart was breaking. "Please?" I made 2 cups, the silence stretching between us like a living thing. She sat at my small table, in the chair that had become hers over the past 10 months, and wrapped her hands around the mug like she was cold. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For what, exactly?" She looked up at me, those green eyes red-rimmed and pleading. "For Hannah. For what she said, it was horrible and wrong and true." "No, God, no, I never said. I never called it an experiment. But you thought it. Dating down. Isn't that what she said, your friend, who you've known for years, who knows you better than almost anyone? That's how she described us." "She was drunk. She didn't mean." "Stop." I sat down across from her, my own coffee untouched. "Just stop. Drunk people say what they really think. We both know that. And even if she didn't mean it, even if it was just the wine talking, you sat there and said nothing." I was shocked. I froze. I didn't know what to say. How about shut up? How about how dare you? How about that's my boyfriend you're talking about? Any of those would have worked. She was crying now, tears sliding down her cheeks, and part of me wanted to comfort her. The part that had spent 10 months loving her, or thinking I did. But the larger part, the part that had walked out of that restaurant with my dignity intact, stayed seated. "I fucked up," she whispered. "I know I did. But Ethan, I love you. Do you love the idea of me? The blue-collar boyfriend who makes you feel grounded and real. The guy who fixes your sink and makes you feel like you're not just another financial drone. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time you met my friends? Lily. When's the last time you came to my mom's for dinner? You've been asking me to change since day one. Dress better, speak differently, learn about wine and art and all the things your world values. But what have you done to fit into mine?" She opened her mouth, closed it. We both knew the answer. "I told my parents about you," she said finally, like it was some grand gesture. "Told them what, that you're dating a plumber or that you're dating someone in trades. Because those are 2 very different things." Her silence was answer enough. "I was going to introduce you. At Thanksgiving. I already told my mom." "Were you? Or were you going to find another excuse, like you have for the past 10 months, another work emergency, another conflict, another reason why it wasn't quite the right time?" "That's not, I wasn't." But she couldn't finish the sentence because we both knew I was right. I stood up, dumped my cold coffee in the sink. "You know what the worst part is? I would have loved you forever. If you'd just let me be myself. If you'd stood up for me even once. If you'd made me feel like I was your partner instead of your project. I would have given you everything. You can still." "No, I can't. Because I'll always wonder if I'm good enough for you. I'll always be waiting for the next Hannah to remind me that I'm the help. I'll always know that when push came to shove, when you had to choose between me and them, you chose silence." She stood too, moved toward me, but I stepped back. Please don't throw this away. I'll do better. I'll tell them off. You'll what, change your entire social circle. Stop being friends with people you've known for years. And then what? Resent me for it. No thanks. So that's it? 10 months and you're just done. 10 months of trying to be someone I'm not. Yeah, I'm done. She was sobbing now, ugly crying that made her nose run and her shoulders shake. Part of me felt cruel, but the larger part just felt tired. So fucking tired of not being enough. I love you, she said again, like repetition would make it true. I believe you think you do. But love isn't about tolerating someone despite their job. It's not about keeping them separate from the parts of your life that matter. And it's sure as hell not about letting your friends treat them like they're beneath you. I walked to the door, opened it. The message was clear. She gathered her purse, moved past me, then turned one more time. This is a mistake. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe, but it's mine to make. After she left, I turned my phone back on. 37 texts, 15 missed calls, 3 voicemails. I deleted them all without reading or listening. Then I scrolled through my contacts until I found her number, took a breath, and blocked it. Then I blocked Hannah, Derek, Priya, and every other number I'd saved from her world. It felt like closing a door, like sealing off a part of my life that had never really belonged to me anyway. Jake came by that afternoon with beer and pizza, having somehow sensed through best friend telepathy that shit had gone down. I gave him the short version between bites of pepperoni. Fucking finally, he said. I've been waiting for you to wise up for months. Could have said something. Would you have listened? You were so caught up in playing Pretty Woman, except you were Julia Roberts. Despite everything, I laughed. That's basically what her friend said. Broken clock, twice a day. Jake shrugged. Look, man, I'm not saying she's evil or whatever, but she was never going to see you as an equal. People like that, they think they're being all progressive and open-minded by dating someone like us. But deep down, they still think they're better. Someone like us, I repeated. When did we become a category? When we decided to work with our hands instead of our trust funds. But here's the thing. I'd rather be us than them any fucking day. You built a life from nothing. You own your place. You run your business. You help people every day. What does she do? Move rich people's money around to make them richer. He had a point, several points, actually. She's texting me, Jake said, looking at his phone. Wants to know if I've seen you. Block her. Already done, brother. We drank beer and watched the game and didn't talk about it anymore. But I felt something loosening in my chest. Some knot I'd been carrying for months finally starting to untangle. Over the next week, she tried everything. She sent flowers to my work site. I gave them to Mrs. Rodriguez, whose husband was in the hospital. She showed up at my regular bar. I went home early. She even called my mom, spinning some story about a misunderstanding. She seems nice, Mom said carefully when she called to tell me. Very upset. Very polished. Yeah, that's one word for it. You want to tell me what happened. So I did. The whole story, even the parts that made me look pathetic. Mom listened without interrupting, which was rare for her. Oh, honey, she said when I finished. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I knew what you'd say. That you deserve someone who's proud to be with you, that you shouldn't have to change yourself to be loved. That any woman who lets her friends disrespect you isn't worth your time. Yeah, that. Well, I'm saying it now. And I'm adding this. Thank God you figured it out before you got in any deeper. Imagine marrying into that family. Imagine raising kids with someone who'd let them grow up thinking their father was less than because he works with his hands. I hadn't even thought that far ahead. But she was right. What would it have been like, years down the line? Would our kids have been embarrassed by me too? Would Lily have made excuses for my job at school events? Would I have spent the rest of my life feeling like I had to apologize for existing? Thanks, Mom. Come for dinner Sunday. I'll make pot roast. Yeah, okay. And Ethan, I'm proud of you for walking out. That took guts. It didn't feel like guts. It felt like survival. The next escalation came through my business. I got a call from one of my regular clients, Mrs. Chen, saying she'd received a strange email about me and wanted to make sure everything was okay. What kind of email? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I knew. Some woman claiming to be your girlfriend, saying there'd been a misunderstanding and asking if I could pass along a message. Very unprofessional. I deleted it, of course, but I wanted to make sure you knew in case it affects your business. Lily had somehow found my client list and was emailing them. The rage that flooded through me was white-hot and immediate. I called her from my work phone, the one she didn't have the number for. "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" I said as soon as she answered. "Ethan. Oh my God, I've been trying to. You're contacting my clients. Are you out of your mind? This is my livelihood, Lily, my business. You have no right." "I didn't know how else to reach you. You blocked me everywhere." "Yeah, there's a fucking reason for that. Leave my clients alone. Leave me alone. Whatever you think this is accomplishing, it's not. All you're doing is proving I made the right choice. I just want to talk. 5 minutes, please." "We talked. It's done. Move on." "I can't. I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of me. You love how I made you feel different from your cookie-cutter friends. But you don't love me, the actual person. Because if you did, you would have defended me, you would have chosen me, and you didn't. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was who you are. And who you are is someone who's embarrassed by who I am. That's not love, Lily. That's. I don't know what it is, but it's not love. Just meet me. One coffee. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain, and if you contact my clients again, I'll file a restraining order. I mean it. I hung up before she could respond. She didn't contact my clients again, but she found other ways. She sent a letter to my house. I returned it unopened. She had a mutual acquaintance try to set up an accidental meeting. I left as soon as I saw her walk in. She even donated to a charity in my name and had them send me a thank you card with a note from her tucked inside. Each attempt made me more certain I'd made the right choice. This wasn't love. This was possession. This was a woman who couldn't stand that someone had walked away from her, that her experiment had developed free will and decided the lab wasn't worth the cheese. The final confrontation came 3 weeks after the birthday dinner. I was loading my truck after a job when she appeared in the parking lot. She looked different, thinner. Her designer clothes replaced with jeans and a sweater. She looked more like the woman I'd met in the hardware store, and for a moment, my resolve wavered. "I'm not ambushing you," she said quickly, hands up like I was a spooked animal. I need to say something. One thing. Then I'll leave you alone forever if that's what you want. You have 2 minutes. I know I fucked up. I know I let you down. I know I made you feel small, and that's unforgivable. But Ethan, I need you to know that it was never an experiment. It was never about dating down or whatever horrible thing Hannah said. I fell in love with you that day in the hardware store when you spent 20 minutes teaching me about faucets. Real love. Not because you were different or because it was some rebellion against my life. Because you were kind and patient and funny and real. She was crying again, but quietly this time. No drama. Just tears. I let my fear of what other people thought matter more than what I felt. I let my friends' opinions carry more weight than your feelings. And that makes me a coward and a snob and all the things you think I am. But it doesn't mean I didn't love you. Didn't, I repeated. Past tense. No, don't. I still do. I'll always. Stop. I closed the truck tailgate, turned to face her fully. I believe you. I believe you think you loved me. Maybe you even did, in your way. But your way of loving isn't enough for me. I need someone who's proud to be with me, who doesn't see my job as something to overcome or explain away. Who tells their friends to shut the fuck up when they disrespect me? I could learn. I could. Maybe you could. But I don't want to be your learning experience. I don't want to wonder every time we're out if you're really okay with being seen with me or if you're just trying harder to hide your embarrassment. I don't want to spend my life feeling like I have to earn my place at your table. That's not what I want either. But it's what would happen, because this isn't about one night or one shitty friend. This is about fundamental differences in how we see the world. In your world, I'm less than. And no matter how much you claim to love me, I don't think you can unlearn that. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You're right." I blinked, surprised. "You're right," she repeated. "I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks, and you're right, I did see you as not less than, exactly, but different. Other. I was always translating you to my friends, explaining you, contextualizing you, and that's not fair. You shouldn't need subtitles." "No, I shouldn't. For what it's worth, these 3 weeks have been the worst of my life. Not because you left, although that hurt, but because I had to see myself clearly for the first time. And I didn't like what I saw. That's growth, I guess. I guess." She wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders. "I'm sorry, Ethan, for all of it. You deserved better." "Yeah, I did. I hope you find it. Someone who sees you clearly from the start. Someone who doesn't need to learn your worth because they recognize it immediately." "Thanks." She turned to go, then looked back one more time. "The faucet still works perfectly, by the way." Despite everything, I smiled. "Good. Take care, Lily." "You too." This time, when she walked away, we both knew it was final. No more attempts, no more messages, no more trying to force something that was broken from the start. She got in her car, the same BMW she'd been embarrassed to park at my apartment complex, and drove away. I stood in that parking lot for a while, processing. It was over. Really over. And while part of me was sad, you can't love someone for 10 months and not mourn the loss, the bigger part felt free, like I'd been holding my breath underwater and finally broke the surface. That night, I met Jake and some of the guys for beers, not at some wine bar or gastropub, but at Mickey's, where the floors were sticky and the bartender knew our names, and nobody gave a shit what you did for a living as long as you tipped well and didn't start fights. "You look different," Jake said, studying me over his beer. "Different how? I don't know, lighter, maybe. Like yourself again." Like myself, not the polished version I'd tried to become. Not the upgraded model that might fit in at gallery openings. Just Ethan who fixed pipes and drank beer and didn't know shit about wine, but could replumb an entire house without breaking a sweat. "Yeah," I said. "I feel like myself again, too." "Good. Because that guy's pretty fucking awesome, even if he can't tell a Merlot from a Cabernet." "Fuck you. I know wine now. This," I held up my beer, "is clearly a vintage Bud Light, notes of hops and regret, with an undertone of poor life choices." We laughed, and it felt good, easy. No performance required. 6 months have passed since that night at Hannah's birthday dinner. 6 months since I walked out of that restaurant and out of Lily's life. I dated a little, a teacher named Sarah who lasted 2 months before deciding she wanted to get back with her ex. A nurse named Carmen who was sweet, but we had no chemistry. Nothing serious. I wasn't looking for serious. I was looking for myself again. I found him in the small things. In the satisfaction of fixing a complicated plumbing issue. In Sunday dinners at my mom's without having to explain or apologize. In beers with friends who'd known me since high school and didn't need me to be anything other than what I was. I heard through the grapevine that Lily was dating someone new, a lawyer or banker or something. Someone from her world who probably knew which fork to use and could discuss market trends without Googling first. I hoped she was happy. I meant that, mostly. But I was happy too. Happy in my small house with my truck that had rust spots and my friends who worked with their hands and my life that didn't require translation or apology. Sometimes I thought about that hardware store, about the woman with sea glass eyes who didn't know how to fix a faucet. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I'd just fixed it for her and left, if we'd never had coffee, if we'd never tried to bridge two worlds that were never meant to meet. But mostly I was grateful. Grateful that I'd learned the difference between being loved and being tolerated. Grateful that I'd walked out of that restaurant with my dignity intact. Grateful that I'd remembered who I was before someone convinced me it wasn't enough. Because here's the thing about being dating down. It only works if you agree that you're beneath someone, and I don't. Not anymore. Maybe not ever, really. Even when I was trying so hard to climb up to meet her. I'm a plumber. I fix things. And the most important thing I ever fixed was my own sense of worth. Broken by months of subtle messages that I needed to be more, better, different. Turns out I didn't need to be any of those things. I just needed to be myself. And find someone who thought that was more than enough. Someone who wouldn't need to explain me or translate me or contextualize me. Someone who'd shut down anyone who tried to make me feel small. Someone who'd be proud to introduce me exactly as I am, Ethan. Plumber. Good man. That's enough. Hell. That's everything.